Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today for this very special event. We are honored to welcome you from all parts of the globe. Today, we are shining a light on the work of one of our Genius 100 visionaries, Dr. Sima Samar. It is so wonderful to see some of our Genius 100 visionaries and so many members of the Genius community here with us today. And for those of you joining us for the first time, thank you. I'm Hilary Viner, CEO of Genius 100 Foundation. On behalf of our founder, Rami Kleinman, our Global Board of Directors and Advisory Committee, we are pleased to have you with us for this important and confidential briefing report on women's rights in Afghanistan. Please keep in mind that G100 is a non-political and non-religious organization. Our purpose is to provide funds and support to under-resourced humanitarian and environmental initiatives and NGOs in geographies around the world. For today, we have a very serious and special request. We ask that you please do not record the conversation you are about to participate in. And also, please do not share on social media or in any public forum. This is a highly confidential conversation, and we are collectively aware of the security risk involved with both Dr. Samar and the situation in Afghanistan. Without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce my esteemed colleague, friend, and Genius 100 Foundation's Chief Community Officer, Helen Hatsis, who will take it from here, starting by introducing the Honorable Ambassador Ito Aharoni and Dr. Sima Samar, whom she has worked with closely for many years, most recently on the G100 Equal to Education Initiative.
Hello, everyone. We are witnessing yet another aspect of humanity that baffles the mind. Yet amongst the chaos, there are individuals who stand above the rest, persevering at any cost to do what is right. In the book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Brazilian author Paulo Freire writes that in most education systems, they teach the oppressors to be proud of who they are, and they teach the oppressed that they don't have value and that they should not feel proud. This is akin to how women are viewed by the Taliban, that they do not have any value in society. It is disheartening, yet where there is a problem, there is a solution, and we will learn and discuss this in today's conversation. Please note that we do have the Q&A option open for you to submit your question, and we will do our best to address as many as possible in the last quarter of the program. It is with much respect and gratitude that I introduce Dr. Sima Samar and Ambassador Ito Aharoni, who will guide us through today's discussion. Ambassador Ito Aharoni serves as a global ambassador of the Genius 100 Foundation and is a global distinguished professor for the international relations at New York University's Faculty of Art and Science. He is a co-founder of Emerson Rigby Limited, a member of the International Advisory Council of APCO Worldwide, a global ambassador for Maccabi World Union, and the chairman of the Charney Forum on New Diplomacy. Ambassador Aharoni is a 25-year veteran of Israel's Foreign Service. He is a public diplomacy specialist, founder of the Brand Israel program, and a well-known nation branding practitioner. Ambassador Aharoni has been Israel's longest-serving consul general in New York and the tri-state area to date, and he has held that position with the rank of ambassador for 6 years, overseeing the operations of Israel's largest diplomatic mission worldwide. Dr. Sima Samar was born in Jahuri, Ghazni, Afghanistan. She obtained her degree in medicine in February of 1982 from Kabul University, one of the few Hazara women to do so. She practiced medicine at a government hospital in Kabul, but after a few months, she was forced to flee for her safety to her native Jahuri, where she provided medical treatment to patients throughout the remote areas of central Afghanistan. And 1 year after the Communist Revolution in 1978, her husband was arrested and was never heard from again. Some years later, Dr. Samar and her young son fled from the safety of nearby Pakistan. She then worked as a doctor at the refugee branch of the mission hospital in Quetta, in 1989, distressed by the total lack of healthcare and facilities for Afghan refugee women, she established the Shuhada Organization and Shuhada Clinic in Quetta. The Shuhada Organization is dedicated to the provision of healthcare of Afghan women and girls and the training of medical staff and education. In the following years, further branches of the clinic and hospital were opened in central Afghanistan. After living in Quetta as a refugee for over a decade, Dr. Samar returned to Afghanistan in December 2001 to assume a cabinet post in the Afghan Interim Administration led by Hamid Karzai. In the interim government, she served as deputy chairperson and first ever Minister for Women's Affairs. She was forced to resign from her post after receiving death threats and being harassed for questioning conservative Islamic laws, especially Sharia law. And during the 2002 Loya Jirga, several religious conservatives published an advertisement in a local newspaper calling Dr. Samar the Salman Rushdie of Afghanistan. Salman Rushdie is also a Genius 100 visionary. Dr. Samar served as head of the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, and over the years, she has been recognized through several international awards, including the 1994 Ramon Magsaysay Award for Community Leadership and the 2004 Jonathan Mann Award for Global Health and Human Rights, and was a nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2009. Despite opposition, limited funding, and death threats, Dr. Samar has persevered and has made what seems to be impossible possible. And without further ado, please welcome Dr. Sima Samar and Ambassador Ido Aharoni, who is conducting this interview from his home in Jerusalem. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Helen, and thank you, Hillary. I also would like to thank our dear and fearless leader, Monette Malevsky, who's on the call with us from Montreal. I've seen the names. We have people from all over the world. We have people from, the East Coast, the West Coast, from Europe. It's a wonderful opportunity to hear from someone who held, as you heard, not only high positions in Afghanistan, but is completely invested emotionally and professionally in what is happening in Afghanistan on human rights, women's rights, and of course, the situation today. Sima, it's good to have you with us. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Sima, please tell us, obviously, the first question that we all have on our minds. Tell us what's going on over there. From your point of view, what is happening?
Yep. First of all, thank you very much. Thank you, Hillary, Helen, and Ido, and all the other participants. And good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. I don't know who's located where. Yes, as we all know, the Taliban took over the country on 15th of August. And people in Afghanistan are living in fear because the people who are older than 30 years, they remember the Taliban regime in 1990s, but the one who are younger, they do see their brutality and violence today in Afghanistan. So yesterday they announced their cabinet, and I was the first Minister of Women's Affairs. Unfortunately, they actually removed the ministry from their list, Ministry of Women's Affairs from their list. So there's no woman, and it's very, very exclusive of their own style. They allow the women to work on health sector. They ask them to come to their jobs, but because of the pandemic and because of the need, they were allowing women medical staff during their government as well. Of course, we don't have a lot, but whatever we have, they are coming and doing their job. But for the rest of the country, where we had a lot more women in the civilian sector and in the army and the police, unfortunately, they told to stay home until we don't know when. You saw also some protests in the street, but it's a very small number compared to the one we attended when the USSR invaded Afghanistan. It was, the streets were full of boys and girls, and we were almost the majority of the Kabul University students were on the street and high school from the Kabul. But currently, because they are fair, they are beating up people and they are arresting. And I don't know if you saw that they arrested some journalists and they beat them up really badly. So it is a lot of violence. So they said to the women that they stay at home and then until the next order. But I think currently Afghanistan faced three very difficult situations. One is of course, the change of the political system or the change of the government from one so-called democratic government to completely somebody who took over by force. And the other problem which people face was the drought in the country. It was already before this change of the political system in the country. And the third disaster is, of course, pandemic with Delta version and the cut on the health support for the health in the country, for the basic social health services in the country by the World Bank. So practically the hospitals are running out of the resources and the capacity to deal with all these problems. And of course, banks are closed and people cannot get their money. Most of the people are running, who were in the civil servant or some people who had some saving in the bank, they don't have cash in order to buy food. And the food price gone up more than double for people. So it is actually a humanitarian and human disaster as we see in Afghanistan. But of course, I mean, when you saw the scene at the airport, that shows the humanitarian crisis in the country.
Yes. Now, Sima, you're known for putting a great emphasis in your great work on women as agents of social and cultural change. So tell us, for the benefit of those on the call who are not familiar with your work in Afghanistan, tell us about the organization that you founded, Shuhada, its mission, and what are the prospects for the future as you see it now with Taliban taking over?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I started Shuhada organization, the first project that we had was a hospital for women and children, because there were no specific hospital for women and children and for the refugees in Pakistan. We had a lot of refugees, most probably around 2 million only in Balochistan area. So I started a hospital for women and children, and then I realized that we don't have enough female staff. So we started to have a female midwifery and nursing course for the female, the Afghan refugees. Even on that time, we were facing a lot of security threats because of running hospital. And then I started school for the girls because education was completely ignored by all the countries who were involved in supporting Afghan refugees in Pakistan. And they started this religious school that today we have the product who are in power in Afghanistan. And the Minister of Higher Education in Afghanistan 2 days ago, he said that you don't need master's degree, you don't need PhDs. Who's running the country right now is the graduate from the madrasa. So there's an important part on that. So I started all those, and I think that we will be able to continue the work because we have the experience of working during Taliban. It was a really tough situation when we started all the work. And we were running a lot of skill training for women as well on that time. And we still do, they still does, the organization is working, but I was, of course, I had my official job, so I was not very much involved, but still I'm in contact with them. And we decided to continue the work, use every small opportunity and crack and do what we want to do, and particularly focusing on education, because I think education is the strongest tool to change the mentality and change the society.
So please, if I may, tell us
Yes.
a little bit more about this mentality, because I don't think we know enough about the tribal loyalty and the ethnic loyalty that exists throughout the region, especially in countries like Afghanistan.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the invasion of the Russian in 1979 and until now we are at war. So in 43 years of war, practically both sides, the government and also the opposition, did not pay attention to education. And the sad part was that even the UN was not paying attention to the education. The focus, particularly on the refugee children in Pakistan, was to take them to the religious school, to the madrasas. And that is not really teaching the actual Islam. They are brainwashing those people. Now, when I saw in 1985, the young children who were taken to those madrasas, just beside the clinic that I was working for the Afghan refugee, they are now and currently in power. So they're not really educated, they're brainwashed. And they think that the way they interpreted Islam is very special. It's not the real Islam. It's nowhere else they applied. But only the terrorist groups inspired by our Taliban. Now they have some people, Al-Shabaab, for example, or Daesh, who claim the same way and continue to use the violence and brutality under the name of Islam. So one of the issues that they are really opposing is, of course, education, the formal education. Because the people who get education, they don't believe what they say, because they can be better Muslim, they can read Quran themselves, or they can read the interpretation of Islam, Quran themselves, rather than somebody telling them what to do.
Now, what would you say is the main challenge for your specific audience, which is younger women? And for those of you who don't know, 52% of Afghanistan's population, females, vast majority young females. What would you say is the top priority when it comes to education?
I think we need to, as we have a say in Afghanistan, that when you educate a man, you educate a person. When you educate a woman, you educate a family, and you educate a community. So that is really true. I mean, the role of a mother who is educated on the economy of the family, on the health of the family and everything is so obvious. So I think it's really important to have a new generation, educated one, in order to really stand and to be a good citizen, not only for Afghanistan, but also for humanity around the world. Because we like it or not, whatever is going on in Afghanistan, it's already shown that it will have impact on the other countries as well. You just see that the crisis, the refugee crisis in our neighboring countries, and also in Europe. I mean, wherever they could reach. These days, the way the people really trying to get out of country, it shows that how much people like the authority who now is in power in Afghanistan.
Now, tell us a bit about the curriculum. If you had to compare what they're teaching in Afghanistan to what we're teaching in the West, tell us about what is it that they teach exactly in the school system? What are the materials?
Well, we have the normal science classes. We have biology. We had it. I hope they will not reduce it. We had physics. We had algebra. We had math. We had chemistry. We had geometry and all those. I studied in a better situation, in a better quality of school. But of course, my now grandchildren cannot have that quality of education because of the whole Islamization during the jihad and fighting against the USSR and so on. They add more Islamic religion in the school curriculum, but still the science and everything. So the environment was a little open. The children could go even beside the school to courses which was extra on science. And they had the possibility and access to internet, so they were able to learn much more than what they were taught in the school. but I'm afraid that they will change the curriculum as well. They already ordered the universities to open, but they have to have separate class for boys and girls. If they don't have enough female teachers, only a male, elderly men with good behavior. So there's difficult to have a clear indicator for good behavior to teach the girls. Otherwise, they should put a curtain between the class so the boys will sit on one side and the girls will sit on the other side. It's stupid because they get out, they see each other. So it's I don't understand the mentality. It's never been the case in Afghanistan before.
Right. Now, you're depicting a very stark picture, but you worked under Taliban, and you actually accomplished a great deal, and then you held senior positions after the U.S. Entered Afghanistan. Do you see any ray of hope under Taliban? Do you see any chance of a change?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say that the Taliban changed, but I think with a lot of pressure from inside and also from outside, there's a possibility of change because Taliban cannot run a country. Of course, it's easy to take the territory, but to govern, to stop particularly the young generation who had in the last 20 years freedom of movement, freedom of what they wear, for example, how they cut their hair. These are issues for the Taliban, and they were during their government. So there might be resistance from inside, and also it should be a lot of pressure from outside. I think it's important that the international community really keep the principle of human rights in mind when they're engaged with Taliban. And of course, the people who are in need and humanitarian crisis, they should not be punished because of bad leadership.
Right. There's no question about that. At the same time, you hear more and more people that say, force is illegitimate, whether police force or military force. So that's what probably, in the name of American exceptionalism, the U.S. went into Afghanistan. And in the name of American exceptionalism, they're pulling out. So, so times have changed, using force has become kind of illegitimate in many, many parts of our Western society. And the question is, from what you gather, what is the expectation of people like you in Afghanistan, of the international community? What do they expect of them to do now?
Well, I think in the last 20 years, most of the international community was directly involved in Afghanistan by military and also by their financial support to the Afghan government. So they are part of, I would say that we shared the failure and we shared the successes. Yes, of course, we achieved a lot, but those achievements, I was always arguing that those achievements should become sustainable, and that is not there. I mean, so the international community should, in my personal view, should really push the United Nations and support United Nations to take an active role, because the only institution that people still think that they are impartial, although it's not very, I mean, you served over there, so it's not very impartial, but still that is the entity that the people trust. That would be really something that could be engaged with Taliban with the principle of human rights in place. And also the Afghan obligation, because we ratified a lot of conventions and we do have obligation to stay with that obligation that we have and respect those. The other point that I think is really important is, of course, people should not watch the war crimes and crimes against humanity happening in Afghanistan. I mean, yesterday they killed 5 police officers in Kandahar. And they beaten up these journalists, and 2 people were killed in Herat while they were protesting. Although Taliban announced yesterday that nobody can get out, it is illegal, but still people were in the street today in different part of the country. So they use violence, they beat up those journalists, and it's really badly beaten up those journalists. Those issues should be raised. And then the humanitarian support should really not go directly to Taliban, but go to the people through the national NGOs, because they can reach in different parts of the country, with a mechanism to monitor that, to avoid corruption, to avoid misuse of the humanitarian aid to the people.
Now, you're one of the visionaries of the Genius 100 Visions community. I've seen the list of the people on the call. Some of them are not familiar with Genius, they're first timers. Let me just say, this is a curated community that was established in the inspiration of Albert Einstein's work. And the purpose of this community is to translate the goodwill that people have and to work together to build a better future. And I think that that's what we're trying to do in Afghanistan. And Sima, my question to you is, we have on the call some very influential people. What would you like us to do with the Genius 100 community when it comes to your mission in Afghanistan?
I think the colleagues can support the education program in Afghanistan, because through education, as I said, that we can enable people to stand for their rights. Otherwise, this superficial pressure from outside to bring democracy in Afghanistan might not work. I mean, we saw that it didn't work. So we don't have to spend on those, rather than we should spend on empowering and building the capacity of the people. And education is a basic human rights. It's not luxury. And it should be for men and women. And we should use every possible means and windows to educate people. If it's even they pressurize us, we should do it in our home and underground. And also the possibilities that we have openly, we should use those in order to educate people. Through education, I think we give them the tool to stand and take themselves out of poverty, out of this violence, out of this ignorant way of thinking that we are facing with these people.
So you believe that the change can only come from within. It cannot be imposed from the outside. So
I think,
would it be?
Yes, go
Please,
ahead.
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead, please.
I think the main source in any country is the people inside. But the international community can facilitate and help us to achieve that goal because of the poverty that exists in the country, unfortunately. And it was actually the fall of the Afghan government was in a very bad time, because this is a harvest time and people could not really collect their harvest. And of course it was drought, but it was still something. So they couldn't really make much money to survive with their harvest. If it been fruit, if it was wheat or any other crops we had.
Now, Sima, we have a couple of very interesting questions from the audience, which I'd like to share with you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, okay.
We have a question coming from Olga, who is in California. She's thanking you for being here, and she's asking, you must have a network of graduates and people affiliated with Shuhada. Have you been able to get them involved in any of your activities and your current efforts?
Yes, of course. I have to say that the graduates from Shuhada School are now getting their PhDs and Harvard University here in the US. So there's a wide range of these students who were diplomats and everywhere. But since the fall of the current regime, of course, they are working with Shuhada as well. But the current situation put all of us in shock. We are trying slowly to come back and hold ourselves together and see what is possible. Although in this circumstances, the clinics which was run by Shuhada is working, and they are doing some of their other project, but the problem is that they cannot get money out of the bank in order to pay and buy supply for the hospital.
Now, there's a question from Tony about what is being done currently by the United Nations. You stated that the United Nations is an organization that enjoys, relatively speaking, a high level of respect in Afghanistan. What is being done so far that you're familiar with?
Well, they're still in the country. The UN Women have staff in the country. UNICEF has a staff in the country. And of course, their movement is limited, particularly the foreign staff of those entities. The movement is more limited, but they are still trying to reach out to the issues. At least they are monitoring the situation. That is also an important thing. UNHCR, I think one of the WFP already brought some food in Afghanistan. They've flown 3 airplanes to Mazar Sharif to bring some most probably wheat and some grains to distribute among the people, because at least half of the population, around 17 millions of people are in need of humanitarian support. Otherwise, they will go starving, and we already have enough malnourished children and women particularly, but it will increase. And you know that malnourishment, what will happen to their health in the future.
There's another question here from Swati asking, first of all, thanking you for your amazing work, asking if those educational programming that we're discussing, those programs can they be done online, or can we only consider in-person sessions?
It depends on the finance. If we have enough possibility to do it online, that might be possible if the Taliban do not cut off the internet. But of course, people still, some of the students are so poor, they don't have a computer, they don't have internet. So there's a possibility to teach them online. So we did that during the COVID, but they were distributing in the flash or in the CDs, and the teacher was with the students on WhatsApp, and they were communicating with the students and answering some of their questions. But it requires money. That is the problem.
Which is a wonderful segue to my next question coming in from Regina. What can US-based nonprofits or companies do to support Afghan women and their families at this particular time?
Well, one of the support, of course, we need solidarity and political support. That is one that I hope the colleagues would do and stand with us. And the other thing is that donate money to the education, equality for education, E2E, so we can continue that, and hopefully we will find way to transfer the money in the country. The people will find ways how to do it if the banks are still closed or remain closed in the country.
Sima, thank you for, you're inspiring all of us. I think I'm speaking on behalf of all of us on this call, because you're so optimistic despite of this, bleak situational picture on the ground. And I would like to ask you one last question before I turn it over to Helen and Hillary. Is there anything you would like us to know about the situation? Is there any message that you feel that is not being conveyed to people of stature and influence like we have on this call?
Yes, I think one is that the Taliban are not changed. So these are the same people as they were in 1990s. The second point that I did not touch, unfortunately, our neighboring country is very much involved in the issue. So that also has to be raised in the issue of human rights. The other point that I want to say, that again, I repeat myself, that the problem will not stay only in the boundary of Afghanistan. It will reach everybody in different ways. I mean, when I go through the airport, I see that everything we go through the security forces is done after 9/11. So, which is impacting all of us. I mean, harassing all of us in a way. So that will be the issue in the future also. And the final point that I want to say is that I keep using this quote. I used it yesterday as well, that when you see a tree which lost all of the leaves during the autumn, when I'm looking to that, and I think that I lost everything I did for 40 years in my life, I think I'm waiting until the weather is ready to come back and be green as a tree in the future. And I would like our colleague and friends to be with us. And thank you for your solidarity.
Thank you, Sima. Thank you for inspiring us. And I totally agree with you. There's nothing more powerful than the power of renewal and growth. And what you're talking about is the power to renew, to regrow. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We are all grateful to you, and we will do whatever we can to alleviate the situation. And with that, I'd like to turn it over back to Helen and Hillary. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ido. Hi, Sima.
Hi.
Sima, I have a couple of questions for you that came to us via email. This one is from Regina Sheridan in the United States, and she says, Dr. Samar, thank you so much for your insight, bravery, and efforts. You've touched upon a part of her question, but I'll ask you the second part is, what can US-based nonprofits or companies do to support Afghan women and their families?
I think that it's a lot of women in Afghanistan. So again, we can't really reach to each one of them, but as much as we can to educate them, and also to, if they are really in need, to create some kind of a, not only a relief item for them, to give them a dignified way of earning. So we can do some work in the meantime and create something by women, and then also give them some money to use them for their daily need. And we did this during Taliban. We when it was blockade on central part of Afghanistan, we got some money. We bought the wool, the sheep wool from the families. So we gave them some cash, and then we give the wool to women to spin it. We gave them another group of cash, and then the third group who was waving carpet or kilim, and also a blanket. So we distributed the blanket and the rag for the people who were displaced. So it was 4 levels of the same money that we used, and people were happy with that program. So we need to create job opportunity for those women in the country and their families.
Thank you, Sima. You've covered off quite a bit. I'm looking at the other questions, and you've so graciously and gracefully answered them all. There's one point from Lisa Rashawn in Ontario, Canada. And she's saying, thank you for your remarkable work, Dr. Samar. And of course, given the hardline policies of the Taliban and the cancellation of all girls' sports, is it safe for young women to continue? And I know you touched upon this a little bit, but is it safe for young women to continue studying at your schools in Afghanistan? And your colleague, Hallie Siddons, was asking a similar question. Or is it preferable to sponsor promising women to study abroad in countries such as Canada?
Well, I think both, because they're able to continue the education. Even if they push us to separate the classes, we will continue it. Again, I'm sorry to say this repeatedly, it's depend on the financial situation of us as well, how much we can cover, because they are not able and they are not in a position to pay for their for tuition. Mm-hmm. If not, we will do it, even if it's needed, classes on the ground and homes in order to educate them. And of course, it might be difficult for the girls to continue their sports, because that is too, for Taliban, it's not something that they need. One of the Taliban had an interview last night with one of television. They said, why a woman should be minister? And I don't see that, because they are not capable.
Sima, are there any, is there anything else that you would like to remark before we close this webinar?
Yeah, I think the other issues that we all know, I don't need to repeat this, that no community or no country will be prosperous without their women. We cannot really reach to development, to a human rights, to a democratic society, to a freedom if women in a country is not free. We can't really build everything with half of the population. That is the issue. So we need to focus on that. And we should not really use the excuse that we respect the culture and tradition of Afghanistan. We don't touch this. This is their own business. Unfortunately, that was the case, and people keep saying that. We were saying that Afghanistan is a very traditional and religious country. We cannot really bring democracy. And human rights is Western value. Human rights is not Western value. It's a human value, regardless where we're born and where we live.
100%. And I always, every time I think of you, and you said the quote earlier, but it's so true, that if you educate a man, you educate a person. And if you educate a woman, you educate a society. That is very powerful. Sima, thank you so much for your time. I know it's a very, very difficult time for you. Thank you so much for sharing with us, for enlightening us, for educating us. It's I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone. We very much appreciate your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for giving me this opportunity and for your solidarity.
Absolutely. So I'm going to invite my colleague Hillary to come back on to join us to close this wonderful session and conversation. And in the meantime, I'm just going to add a link for everyone to review. If this way you can learn more about the work that we are doing to support Sima. She's done the hard work. She's done all the legwork. And we're just here supporting her to carry on that amazing mission of hers. So it's, I'm posting it right now, and I'll send you all an email following this conversation today. So thank you. Over to you, Hillary.
Thank you. This has been an incredible hour, not even an hour so far, and it's shed light on so much. Sima, again, we can't thank you enough, and we're so honored to have you as part of our community and to be able to bring our global network around you to support you in your work. So thank you for your time, and we'll stay in touch as we have been anyway. Mm-hmm. And we'll be sending out information, as Helen said, to everyone who's been included on this call today about the campaign that we've already started in support of your work, that we're obviously pivoting to continue to support you and make sure that your efforts stay vital.
Thank you. Thank you all.
You're very welcome. So thank you everyone for all of your questions. Thank you, Ido, for conducting a wonderful interview. And again, we'll be sending out information as a follow-up. So anyone who has questions, please just email us. You have our information, or go to our website at genius100visions.com. And we'll see you next time. Thank you and have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.